said, look, I'm with my friend here. We're having lunch. I'm busy. I'll see you later. And I pretended not to remember his story, but I knew exactly what he was talking about. I was much happier being with my friend who was buying me a nice lunch because I'm a priest, I'm a Catholic priest, and we received lots of goodies. And I was enjoying it. And I knew that this man was going to embarrass me. I didn't want to engage him in conversation. I just wanted to say, just get out of my life. And he came not because he wanted to give me a hard time. He wanted to help me to understand what it means to be a priest, what it means to listen to people, what it means to have an ear for the cry of the poor. And in many ways it wasn't him speaking. It was the Holy Spirit of God saying to you, Alexander, saying to me, Alexander, you need to listen to me in the poor. And then when you hear me speaking, then you will understand the gospel. And my invitation to all of you, my invitation to us, is that our time with the poor, and the poor come in all shapes and sizes. It can be that person from school who bores us rigid and we don't want to talk with him because we know he's going to talk about all the things that don't interest us. It could be someone who is in our family who is seriously disabled. It could be the person who is the drunk on the street corner. It could be that invitation to go and work with the sisters in Calcutta. The poor come to us in different ways. But the poor speak to us of God. They are the most authentic voice of Jesus Christ in our world. And that is why our solidarity with the poor in the work of a new evangelization is so important. With the young people who become part of our community in St. Patrick's and Soho, one of the things that I always try to share with them, encourage them to participate. We have various apostolic activities in the parish, working with the homeless, with those suffering from addiction, those caught up in prostitution, various other kinds of support. And I invite them to be part of that because I say, if you want to understand what it means to be loved by God, truly loved by God, listen to the voice of the poor. And then when we go out onto the streets and we meet people who are spending tens of pounds on an evening of entertainment, when we street evangelize, then we are not speaking from our theology books. We're not speaking from the catechism. We are speaking with knowledge of someone who has a true relationship with God. To be able to share the good news of Jesus, we have to be able to hear of people's relationship with Jesus. We have to be able to hear our blessed Lord talking through those who are rejected. You are here this evening because you are zealous for the faith. You want to share the faith with your brothers and sisters. Be ready to listen to the cry of the poor. And there will be myriad of opportunities and places in which you can do it. And then the third part of the journey of the new evangelization is what we call Eucharistic adoration. Now, I'm sufficiently advanced in years to know that the most painful part of my anatomy are my knees. Most of you, I suspect, have very agile knees, and you don't get discomfort with your knees. But you speak with your mums and dads later, I bet they have crook knees. That's what you say in Australia, crook, isn't it? They have crook knees and crooked knees. They know what painful knees are about. Those of us who were in Madrid, do you remember how it was on the vigil? Many of us walked for many hours. It was hot. It was uncomfortable. And then when we got to the airfield, to Quatro Ventos, At a certain moment in time, as the rains were beginning to pour down as thunder and lightning, we went down on our knees and we adored the Lord Jesus present in the most holy sacrament of the altar. What does it mean to go down on your knees? Yes, on one level, it's about physical discomfort. But what is happening in that is something deeply profound and significant for our faith. Our world is full of idols, of gods. It always has been. Those of you who are studying anthropology at college, at university, will know that man has been a worshipping creature from the beginning of time. We've always had gods. We've always worshipped. It's almost like the air that we breathe. During the Old Testament, it was golden calves, it was Baals, it was gods that they made for themselves. Today, our gods are different kind. They're the gods of materialism, the gods of sexual gratification, the gods of Hollywood, the gods of football stars. We worship them. You walk down a high street, a shopping mall, watch people look into the shop windows. What are they doing? Yes, they're discussing with their bank balance, can I buy this, can I buy that? But fundamentally, it is an act of worship. It is an act of bowing down before those idols. Now the consequence of that is that we fill our lives with a lot of rubbish. I do not know the man. I've read virtually nothing about him. But the creator of iPads and iPhones died the other day, Steve Jobs. And in the papers, it seemed for 2 or 3 days, there were endless articles about him, obituaries. I'm sure he was a good man, perhaps a holy man, I do not know. But standing back from that, what was being said that this man was important for our world. This man was someone that we needed to listen to, that we needed to look up to. This man has affected the way that we live our lives. This man has put in certain controls that affect how people are nowadays. That was what was being said. Now, I don't want you to go and burn your iPhones tonight, your iPads tonight. I'm not asking you to do that. But for a moment, stand back and ask yourselves what is going on with that whole world that is like the air that we breathe. At a deep level, man's sickness is about false worship. But we do not go down on our knees to worship. We stand up, we walk by, we throw our credit cards at things. But going onto your knees is an act of what we call kenosis, which means self-emptying. It means saying, I want to empty my mind and my heart at this moment in time, and I want to adore Jesus. I want to get rid of all that rubbish that is part of my heart and my soul, and I want you, dear Jesus, to fill me with your life and your Holy Spirit. That is what we are doing in Eucharistic adoration. But to be able to do that, we have to walk to the cross. Remember how it was in Madrid. It was uncomfortable. The field was plowed. It was raining. It was chaos. We didn't know what was happening, when the Mass was going to be, etc., etc. But we knelt without almost having to be invited. We wanted to empty ourselves in front of God, because we wanted God to say to us, which he does from the Blessed Sacrament, I love you unconditionally. We wanted him to say to us, I adore you. I bless you. I want you to know that you are precious to me. Think how it is when we are dependent upon the material world. The material world gives us our identity. The clothes that we wear, the gadgets that we have, the money that we spend. That explains us to ourselves and to our peer group. But we do not have freedom in that because we are bound up in fashion. We are worrying about what people think of us. We're always judging ourselves and judging others. But when God says to us, I love you, I adore you, I bless you, that is when we are truly free. One of the most telling moments in my life as a priest, I had a job as a prison chaplain. And back in the 1970s, we were subjected in Britain, mainland Britain, to fearsome terrorist attacks by the IRA. And they were in Guildford, they were in Birmingham, and London. And there were a group of people called the Birmingham Six. And there was a horrific bomb in Birmingham. And about between 20 and 30 people were indiscriminately killed. And the British public were outraged by this attack on innocent people. It happened in a pub like this. And they found the culprits, or they thought they found the culprits. They were called the Birmingham Six. And one of my jobs as a prison chaplain was meeting one of these fellows. It was called Billy Power. He was an Irishman, unsurprisingly. And I talked to him, and it was at a stage that we knew, many of us suspected that they were innocent, that they'd been framed. And it took another 2 years before the British authorities finally admitted their mistake and they were free. And I remember talking to this fellow. I said, what's it like? Here you are in prison, you have to wear prison clothes, you've got horrible food, you're banged up 23 hours a day. And he said to me, do you know, Father, I'm as free in here as I have ever been in my life. And then I asked him, how and why could you say that? Because you don't have any liberty. You don't have an iPhone, you don't have an iPad, you don't have a holiday, you don't have a bank account. How can you be free? And he said, because I know God, and I know that He loves me, and He blesses me, and He adores me. The freedom that comes from Eucharistic adoration is an extraordinary freedom. We have to surrender. We have to go to the foot of the cross. We have to bend our crooked knees. But it's significant. It's a moment of deep, deep union with God. And what we do in St. Patrick's is one of the first things that I did when I got there is that I established Eucharistic adoration. And the young people come happily and joyfully to be part of that journey. And at the end of the 9 months, at the end of this course that we have, they always are, I asked them, I said, what was important about the year? Was it the friends that you made? Was it what you learned from the catechism, your pilgrimage to Rome? And they said, the most important thing, Father, was the time that we spent in Eucharistic adoration. Because then we knew who we truly were. We knew our identity. You're called Mary, you're called Simon, you're called Stephen. This is what you represent, this is what you're about. But when you are known personally by God, then you know who you truly are. You know that you are real. You know that you are loved. You know that you have a home in heaven. Go back to World Youth Day, those of you who are there. Some of you may have experiences elsewhere of Eucharistic adoration. But I truly believe the work of a new evangelization has to have at its heart Eucharistic adoration. because it explains us to ourselves. It is God saying to us, I know who you are. He wanted to empty ourselves in front of God, because we wanted God to say to us, which he does from the Blessed Sacrament, I love you unconditionally. We wanted him to say to us, I adore you. I bless you. I want you to know that you are precious to me. Think how it is when we are dependent upon the material world. The material world gives us our identity. The clothes that we wear, the gadgets that we have, the money that we spend. That explains us to ourselves and to our peer group. But we do not have freedom in that, because we are bound up in fashion. We are worrying about what people think of us. We're always judging ourselves and judging others. But when God says to us, I love you, I adore you, I bless you, that is when we are truly free. One of the most telling moments in my life as a priest, I had a job as a prison chaplain, and back in the 1970s we were subjected in Britain, mainland Britain, to fearsome terrorist attacks by the IRA, and they were in Guildford, they were in Birmingham and London, and there were a group of people called the Birmingham Six, and there was a horrific bomb in Birmingham, and about between 20 and 30 people were indiscriminately killed. And the British public were outraged by this attack on innocent people. It happened in a pub like this. And they found the culprits, or they thought they found the culprits. They were called the Birmingham Six. And one of my jobs as a prison chaplain was meeting one of these fellows. He was called Billy Power. He was an Irishman, unsurprisingly. And I talked to him, and it was at a stage that we knew, many of us suspected that they were innocent, that they'd been framed. And it took another 2 years before the British authorities finally admitted their mistake and they were free. And I remember talking to this fellow. I said, what's it like? Here you are in prison, you have to wear prison clothes, you've got horrible food, you're banged up 23 hours a day. And he said to me, do you know, Father, I'm as free in here as I have ever been in my life. I adore you. I bless you. I want you to know that you are precious to me. Think how it is when we are dependent upon the material world. The material world gives us our identity. The clothes that we wear, the gadgets that we have, the money that we spend. That explains us to ourselves and to our peer group. But we do not have freedom in that, because we are bound up in fashion. We are worrying about what people think of us. We're always judging ourselves and judging others. But when God says to us, I love you, I adore you, I bless you, that is when we are truly free. One of the most telling moments in my life as a priest, I had a job as a prison chaplain, and back in the 1970s we were subjected in Britain, mainland Britain, to fearsome terrorist attacks by the IRA. And they were in Guildford, they were in Birmingham and London. And there were a group of people called the Birmingham Six. And there was a horrific bomb in Birmingham. And between 20 and 30 people were indiscriminately killed. And the British public were outraged by this attack on innocent people. It happened in a pub like this. And they found the culprits, or they thought they found the culprits. They were called the Birmingham Six. And one of my jobs as a prison chaplain was meeting one of these fellows. He was called Billy Power. He was an Irishman, unsurprisingly. And I talked to him, and it was at a stage that we knew, many of us knew, suspected that they were innocent, that they'd been framed. And it took another 2 years before the British authorities finally admitted their mistake and they were free. And I remember talking to this fellow. I said, "What's it like? Here you are in prison, you have to wear prison clothes, you've got horrible food, you're banged up 23 hours a day." And he said to me, "Do you know, Father, I'm as free in here as I have ever been in my life." And then I asked him, how and why could you say that? Because you don't have any liberty. You don't have an iPhone, you don't have an iPad, you don't have a holiday, you don't have a bank account. How can you be free? And he said, "Because I know God, and I know that He loves me, and He blesses me, and He adores me." It's full of idols, of gods. It always has been. Those of you who are studying anthropology at college, at university, will know that man has been a worshipping creature from the beginning of time. We've always had gods. We've always worshipped. It's almost like the air that we breathe. During the Old Testament, it was golden calves, it was Baals, it was gods that they made for themselves. Today, our gods are different kind. They're the gods of materialism, the gods of sexual gratification, the gods of Hollywood, the gods of football stars. We worship them. You walk down a high street, a shopping mall, watch people look into the shop windows. What are they doing? Yes, they're discussing with their bank balance, can I buy this, can I buy that? But fundamentally, it is an act of worship. It is an act of bowing down before those idols. Now the consequence of that is that we fill our lives with a lot of rubbish. I do not know the man. I've read virtually nothing about him. But the creator of iPads and iPhones died the other day, Steve Jobs. And in the papers, it seemed for 2 or 3 days, there were endless articles about him, obituaries. I'm sure he was a good man, perhaps a holy man, I do not know. But standing back from that, what was being said that this man was important for our world. This man was someone that we needed to listen to, that we needed to look up to. This man has affected the way that we live our lives. This man has put in certain controls that affect how people are nowadays. That was what was being said. Now, I don't want you to go and burn your iPhones tonight, your iPads tonight. I'm not asking you to do that. But for a moment, stand back and ask yourselves what is going on with that whole world that is like the air that we breathe. At a deep level, man's sickness is about false worship. But we do not go down on our knees to worship. We stand up, we walk by, we throw our credit cards at things. The going on to your knees is an act of what we call kenosis in Birmingham. And between 20 and 30 people were indiscriminately killed. And the British public were outraged by this attack on innocent people. It happened in a pub like this. And they found the culprits, or they thought they found the culprits. They were called the Birmingham Six. And one of my jobs as a prison chaplain was meeting one of these fellows. It was called Billy Power. He was an Irishman, unsurprisingly. And I talked to him, and it was at a stage that we knew, many of us knew, suspected that they were innocent, that they'd been framed. And it took another 2 years before the British authorities finally admitted their mistake and they were free. And I remember talking to this fellow. I said, what's it like? Here you are in prison, you have to wear prison clothes, you've got horrible food, you're banged up 23 hours a day. And he said to me, do you know, Father, I'm as free in here as I have ever been in my life. And then I asked him, how and why could you say that? Because you don't have any liberty. You don't have an iPhone, you don't have an iPad, you don't have a holiday, you don't have a bank account. How can you be free? And he said, because I know God, and I know that He loves me, and He blesses me, and He adores me. The freedom that comes from Eucharistic adoration is an extraordinary freedom. We have to surrender. We have to go to the foot of the cross. We have to bend our crooked knees. But it's significant. It's a moment of deep, deep union with God. And what we do in St. Patrick's is one of the first things that I did when I got there is that I established Eucharistic adoration. And the young people come happily and joyfully to be part of that journey. And at the end of the 9 months, at the end of this course that we have, they always I asked them, I said, what was important about the year? Was it the friends that you made? Was it what you learned from the catechism, your pilgrimage to Rome? And they said, the most important thing, Father, was the time that we spent in Eucharistic adoration. Because then we knew who we truly were. We knew our identity. You're called Mary, you're called Simon, you're called Stephen. This is what you represent, this is what you're about. But when you are known personally by God, then you know who you truly are.